The medical bay doors of Gateway Station exploded inward with such force that the metal frame buckled. Every species in the waiting area jumped. Some dove for cover. Others froze in place, their survival instincts kicking in hard. Dr. Kate Morrison had been enjoying her morning coffee, looking over the day's appointments. A Tellurian merchant's pet needed vaccinations. A diplomat's companion animal had developed a strange rash. Normal stuff. Boring stuff. Safe stuff. Not anymore. Her coffee mug stopped halfway to her mouth as armed guards poured through the entrance. Their armor was obsidian black, polished to a mirror shine, and covered in symbols she recognized from the news broadcasts. Valerian Empire. One of the big players in galactic politics. The kind of empire that could wipe out entire star systems if they got angry enough. What were they doing at her little veterinary clinic? Then she saw him. King Theron himself stepped through the doorway, and Kate understood why people called the Valorians beautiful. His skin was pure silver, smooth as polished metal, catching the harsh fluorescent lights of the station and turning them into something almost magical. He wore robes that probably cost more than her entire clinic. His eyes were deep violet, and right now they were filled with something Kate recognized immediately. Desperation. But it wasn't the king that made her breath catch in her throat. It was the creature beside him. A night fawn. Kate had only seen pictures in her xenobiology textbooks back in college. The images hadn't done it justice. This thing was massive. 8 feet tall at the shoulder, maybe more. Its fur was midnight black, so dark it seemed to absorb the light around it. Muscles rippled under that fur with every movement, each one powerful enough to tear through steel. 6 legs, each ending in claws that left deep scratches in the station's reinforced metal floor. And the eyes. 3 of them, arranged in a triangle pattern on its head. They glowed with an inner fire, burning with fever and pain and rage all mixed together. The creature's lips were pulled back, revealing rows of teeth designed by evolution to kill things much bigger than Kate. 6 guards surrounded it, holding energy chains that crackled with blue light. The night fong pulled against them, and even with 6 trained soldiers working together, they struggled to hold it back. The waiting room had gone completely silent. Even the background hum of the station's life support system seemed quieter. Someone help him. The king's voice echoed through the medical center. It was the voice of someone used to being obeyed, but Kate heard something else underneath it. Pleading. Please. Anyone. Dr. Vosh, the station's head physician, stepped forward. He was Centaurian, tall and thin with 4 arms and skin like blue marble. He'd been practicing medicine for 70 years, had 3 advanced degrees, and could perform surgery on 12 different species. He took one look at the thrashing night fong and took 3 steps backward. Your Majesty, I cannot. Vosh's voice was steady, professional, but Kate saw his hands trembling. Night fangs are extremely dangerous. The sedatives we would need to use would kill it instantly. And the toxin in its system, according to my preliminary scans, is beyond anything in our medical database. I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do. King Theron's violet eyes dimmed. His shoulders sagged just for a moment before he straightened again. 12 worlds, he said, and his voice cracked slightly. I have traveled to 12 different worlds. I've spoken with every doctor, every healer, every biosculptor with a reputation. I've visited medical centers that cost more to enter than most planets make in a year. You are the 13th place I've brought him. The 13th doctor I've begged. The silence in the room was suffocating now. Dr. Vosh shook his head slowly. Your Majesty, I understand your attachment to the creature, but perhaps it's time to accept that some things are beyond even our advanced medicine. Perhaps it's time to let nature take its course and... No. The single word from the king dropped the temperature in the room by 10 degrees. The guards around him tensed, hands moving to their weapons. The night fong growled, a sound that came from deep in its chest and made Kate's bones vibrate. If Razor dies, I die. King Theron said it quietly, but everyone heard him. We are bonded. When a Valerian king chooses a night fong companion, their life forces connect. His death is my death. This is not nature taking its course. This is murder. Someone poisoned him. And everyone in this galaxy is too afraid to save him. Kate looked at the creature called Razor. Really looked at it. Past the terrifying teeth and claws. Past the aggressive posturing and the snarling. She saw what everyone else was missing. The animal was suffering. Its breathing was too fast, too shallow. Its pupils were dilated wrong. The way it held its left rear leg suggested pain in the hip joint. The constant snarling wasn't aggression, it was a pain response. This creature wasn't trying to kill everyone in the room. It was dying and scared out of its mind. Kate set her coffee down on the counter. Her hands weren't shaking. 10 years of veterinary work, most of it with Earth's most dangerous predators, had trained that out of her. But her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She was just a human. Her species had only been in space for about a century. Her clinic was small, specializing in the exotic pets that traders and diplomats brought through the station. She had no business approaching an alien king. No business volunteering for something that had stumped the galaxy's best medical minds. But that night Fong wasn't a monster to her. It was just another patient in pain. "I'll do it," Kate said, stepping forward. Every eye in the room turned to her. The guards' weapons hummed to life, energy cells charging with a high-pitched whine. "You?" King Theron stared at her like she just appeared out of thin air. "You're human." "I'm a veterinarian," Kate said calmly, meeting his gaze. "And that animal is in pain. I help animals in pain. That's my job." One of the guards, a female Valerian with scars across her silver face, sneered at Kate. "The human species has barely left their homeworld. They're primitive. They know nothing of advanced medicine or complex xenobiology. This is an insult to His Majesty." Kate kept her eyes on King Theron. "Maybe primitive is exactly what you need right now. Your advanced medicine hasn't worked. So maybe it's time to try something different." King Theron studied Kate for what felt like an eternity. His violet eyes swept over her, probably calculating 1,000 different things. Was she insane? Was this some kind of trap? Could a human really succeed where the galaxy's best had failed? Then, to the shock of everyone in the medical bay, he lifted one silver hand and waved his guards back. "What do you need?" he asked. Kate took a breath. This was it. No turning back now. "Access. Let me examine him properly. Just me and Razor. Alone." The reaction was immediate and explosive. The guards erupted in protest, their voices overlapping into chaos. "Absolutely not. She'll be killed. This is madness." One guard actually grabbed Kate's arm, trying to pull her back to safety. Dr. Vasha's laugh cut through the noise. It wasn't a kind laugh. "That creature will tear you apart. I've seen Nightfangs kill prey 3 times their size. You'll last maybe 5 seconds before it rips you to shreds. Your Majesty, I cannot allow this. When she dies, it will create an interstellar incident." But Kate wasn't listening to any of them. She was already walking toward Razor, each step slow and deliberate. Her boots clicked on the metal floor, the sound sharp in the sudden silence that fell over the room. The Nightfang's 3 eyes locked onto her immediately. All that burning rage and pain focused down to a single point. Kate. His lips pulled back even further, revealing rows of teeth that looked like they belonged in a nightmare. Each tooth was as long as her finger, curved and sharp enough to slice through bone like butter. She could feel the heat radiating off his massive body from 6 feet away. The fever was cooking him from the inside out. His breathing was harsh and ragged, each exhale sounding wet and painful. Kate stopped just outside striking range. If Razor lunged, those 6 powerful legs could close the distance in less than a heartbeat. Everyone in the room knew it. She knew it. Then she did something that made every alien present gasp out loud. She sat down on the floor, cross-legged. Come. Like she was about to have a picnic. "What is she doing?" one guard whispered, his voice high with panic. "Being prey," another guard responded, horror clear in his tone. "She's making herself vulnerable. She's going to die." But Kate knew something they didn't. She'd spent 10 years working with Earth's most dangerous predators. Wolves that could tear apart a deer in minutes. Lions with jaws powerful enough to crush skulls. Bears that could flip cars with a single swipe. She'd worked with them all, studied them, learned to read their body language like a book. Fear made predators dangerous. It made them lash out, attack first and ask questions never. And pain made them even worse. Pain made them desperate, unpredictable, willing to fight anything that got too close. Right now, Razor was drowning in both fear and pain. So Kate made herself small. Non-threatening. She let her shoulders drop, relaxed her posture, made herself look as harmless as possible. She controlled her breathing, slowing it down to a calm, steady rhythm. In and out. In and out. She could feel her heart rate dropping, feel the adrenaline that wanted to flood her system being pushed back down. She projected calm. Not through any special power or technology. Just through body language, through the ancient signals that predators had been reading for millions of years of evolution. 5 minutes passed in absolute silence. Nobody moved. Nobody even seemed to breathe. Then 10 minutes. Razor's breathing started to slow. The constant thrashing and pulling against the energy chain stopped. Those 3 burning eyes stayed locked on Kate, but something in them changed. The rage was still there, but underneath it she could see something else now. Terror. This creature was dying, and somewhere deep in his brain, past the fever and the pain and the poison, he knew it. He was terrified. "Easy, boy," Kate said softly. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but in the silent medical bay, everyone heard it. "I'm here to help. I promise." She slowly extended her hand, palm down, fingers relaxed. It was the universal gesture of peace. At least, it was universal on Earth. She hoped it worked here too. Razor's nose twitched. His nostrils flared, taking in her scent. Human. Strange. Unknown. But not aggressive. Not threatening. He took one step toward her. His claws clicked on the metal floor. The guards tensed. Kate heard the energy chains crackle as they pulled tight, ready to yank Razor back if he attacked. Then he took another step. And another. He was close enough now that Kate could see her reflection in his eyes. Close enough that his hot, fever breath washed over her face and hands. It smelled wrong, sour with sickness. King Theron raised one hand, stopping his guards from pulling Razor back. The king's face was unreadable, but his hand was steady. He was trusting her. Actually trusting her. Razor's massive nose touched Kate's palm. The contact was gentle, almost careful. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, impossibly, the enormous Nightfang lowered himself to the ground. His 6 legs folded beneath him with careful precision. And he laid his massive head, weighing probably 100 pounds by itself, directly in Kate's lap. Kate's legs nearly buckled under the weight, but she held steady. She placed one hand gently on Razor's head, between his eyes. His fur was scorching hot, soaked with fever sweat. "Scan him," Kate said quietly, but her voice carried command now. "Full molecular analysis. I need to know exactly what's killing him. And I need those results 5 minutes ago." The medical bay erupted into activity. Doctors and technicians rushed forward with scanning equipment, their earlier protests forgotten in the face of what they'd just witnessed. A human had just calmed a dying Nightfang with nothing but patience and body language. Maybe there was hope after all. The scanning equipment beeped, and data flooded across the screens mounted on the medical bay walls. Kate watched the numbers scroll past, her trained eye picking out the important details. Then her stomach dropped. This was bad. Really bad. The toxin wasn't just killing Razor. It had bonded to his neural tissue at the molecular level, like a parasite that had woven itself into the very fabric of his brain. Every major organ showed damage. His liver was struggling. His kidneys were barely functioning. His heart was working overtime, trying to pump blood through a system that was slowly shutting down. Kate scrolled through the data on her handheld device, her finger moving faster and faster as she searched for something, anything that might give her a solution. "There has to be another way," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. Dr. Vosh moved closer, peering over her shoulder at the small screen. His 4 arms crossed in front of his chest, and his expression was grim. "There isn't another way. Trust me, we've tried everything. Quantum extraction to pull the molecules out atom by atom. Cellular regeneration to replace the damaged tissue. Molecular substitution to swap the toxin for harmless compounds. Nothing works. The toxin is too deeply integrated." Kate's fingers stopped scrolling. Her eyes locked onto a specific section of the data. "You've tried to remove it," she said slowly. Her brain was racing now, connecting dots that others had missed. "All of your methods focus on extraction. On pulling the poison out of his system." "Yes, obviously," Dr. Vosh said, his tone suggesting she was stating the painfully obvious. "That's how you treat poisoning. You remove the poison. What if we don't?" Kate looked up at him. The medical bay went quiet. Everyone stared at her. King Theron's violet eyes widened. "Don't remove the poison? That makes no sense. How can you cure poisoning without removing the poison?" Kate stood up carefully, gently sliding Razor's massive head off her lap and onto a cushioned medical pad. The Nightfang growled softly but didn't move. She walked to the main display screen and pulled up a 3-dimensional diagram of Razor's neural pathways. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the highlighted areas where the toxin had bonded. "The toxin is synthetic, right? Someone made it in a lab. But look at its structure. It's designed to mimic Razor's natural neurotransmitters. That's brilliant, actually. Evil but brilliant." Dr. Vosh moved closer to the screen, his professional curiosity overriding his skepticism. "Yes, that's why extraction is so difficult. His body thinks the toxin belongs there. It's not triggering an immune response." "Exactly." Kate's fingers flew across the screen, pulling up chemical structures. "His body thinks it belongs there. So what if, instead of trying to convince his body to reject it, we give it something better? Something it wants more? She overlaid two molecular structures on the screen. One was the toxin. The other was a compound she'd just designed based on Razor's own biochemistry. If we introduce a competitor molecule, something that binds more strongly to the same neural receptors, the toxin will be pushed out naturally. It's like... She searched for an analogy they'd understand. It's like musical chairs. The new molecule is stronger, faster. It takes the chair, and the toxin has nowhere to sit. Dr. Vosh stared at the screen. You'll flood his system with another foreign compound. That's essentially another toxin. You'll kill him faster. No, Kate shook her head firmly. Look closer. The compound I'm proposing is almost identical to a molecule his liver already produces as waste. See? She zoomed in on the chemical structure. 3 carbon atoms different. That's it. His liver can process this naturally. It already knows how. We're not fighting his biology. We're working with it. We're giving his body the tools it needs to save itself. The gathered physicians stared at the screen in silence. Kate could see the wheels turning in their heads. It was so simple. Almost embarrassingly simple. And yet none of them had thought of it. Human medicine is based on chemistry, Kate continued, her voice steady and confident now. For most of our history, we didn't have quantum computers or molecular extractors or any of your advanced technology. We had chemicals and compounds and trial and error. We learned to work with the body's natural processes, not override them. Sometimes the old ways work better. King Theron looked from the screen to Razor, still lying quietly on the medical pad, his breathing labored and painful. How long? The king asked. How long will this take? Kate met his eyes. She wasn't going to lie to him or give him false hope. To synthesize the compound? 3 hours, maybe 4. We need to get the molecular structure exactly right. To administer it? 5 minutes. It's just an injection. But to know if it actually works. She paused. 24 hours. Maybe 48. His body needs time to process everything and heal. The king nodded slowly, processing the information. Then Kate took a breath. She had to tell him the rest. Your Majesty, there's something else you need to know. She pulled up the detailed scans again, highlighting specific areas on Razor's organs. These scarring patterns here and here and here. This damage isn't all recent. Some of this is weeks old. Maybe months old. King Theron's silver skin began to darken, shifting to a steel-gray color that Kate instinctively knew meant anger. What are you saying? This isn't the first poisoning, Kate said softly. Someone's been dosing Razor slowly over time. Small amounts, not enough to kill him immediately but enough to weaken him gradually. This acute crisis, the one that brought you here, was just the final dose. The one meant to finish the job. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The guards' hands moved to their weapons. Razor growled, sensing his bonded companion's rage. Assassination, Theron said, his voice deadly quiet. I'm so sorry, Kate said. But you needed to know. The king's jaw clenched so tight Kate thought she heard his teeth grind together. He stared at Razor for a long moment, his fists clenched at his sides. Then he looked at Kate and his expression shifted. The anger was still there but something else had joined it. Wonder. Respect. Maybe even hope. 12 worlds, he said slowly. 13 different doctors. Hundreds of years of combined medical experience and advanced degrees. Access to technology that can manipulate individual atoms. And a human veterinarian, working in a small clinic on a trading station, found what they all missed. Kate felt her cheeks warm. Sometimes the best tool for the job isn't the most advanced one, Your Majesty. Sometimes it's just the right one. Sometimes simple is better. King Theron walked over to Razor and knelt beside his dying companion. He placed one silver hand on the Nightfang's head, gentle and careful. When he looked up at Kate, his violet eyes were bright with emotion. Save him, he said. Please. Save my friend. Kate nodded. I'll do everything I can. The compound worked better than Kate had dared to hope. Within 6 hours of the injection, Razor's fever broke. She'd been monitoring his vitals constantly, watching the numbers on her medical scanner, barely daring to breathe. Then suddenly his temperature dropped 3 degrees. Then 5. Then it stabilized at normal levels. She actually cried a little when it happened. Nobody saw it. She made sure of that. Within 12 hours, Razor was eating. Not much at first. Just a few bites of the specialized meat that King Theron had brought from the Valerian homeworld. But he kept it down, and that was what mattered. His body was starting to function again, processing nutrients, beginning the long road to recovery. Within 24 hours, Razor stood up. His legs shook with the effort, and he could only manage it for a few seconds before lying back down. But he stood. Kate watched those 6 powerful legs push that massive body upright, and she knew they'd done it. He was going to survive. King Theron had barely left Razor's side during the entire process. The mighty ruler of the Valerian Empire sat on the floor of the medical bay, one hand always touching his companion, speaking softly in his own language. Kate didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Love, relief, gratitude. Then everything changed. A messenger burst into the medical bay, his silver face flushed darker with urgency. He whispered something to the king, and Kate watched Theron's expression shift from relief to horror to cold, hard rage in the span of 3 seconds. What happened? Kate asked, though part of her already knew. Another attempt, Theron said, his voice tight. On my life. Back on Valoria Prime. They tried to bomb the Royal Council chambers. My sister was inside. He paused, his fists clenching. She survived, but others didn't. The conspirators are moving now. They think I'm weak, stuck here while Razor recovers. They're making their play for the throne. He stood up, his royal robes swirling around him. I have to return. Immediately. My empire is tearing itself apart. Kate looked at Razor, still lying on the medical pad. He was better, yes. But he was still weak. Still recovering. He's not strong enough for hyperspace travel, she said carefully. The stress on his system could undo everything we've done. He needs at least another week of recovery before. I don't have a week, Theron interrupted. Every hour I'm away, more people die. My sister is trying to hold the Loyalists together, but she can't do it alone. Kate looked at Razor. Then at her medical kit sitting in the corner. Then back at the king. Then I'm coming with you. The words were out of her mouth before she'd fully thought them through. But once she said them, she knew they were right. Razor needed continued treatment. The royal medical staff didn't know her methods. If something went wrong during the journey, he'd need her there. One of Theron's advisors, an older Valerian woman with scars across her silver skin, stepped forward immediately. Absolutely not. Your Majesty, we cannot bring a human to the homeworld. It's unprecedented. No human has ever set foot on Valoria Prime. It would be humiliating to our people. What would they think, seeing us arrive with a primitive species at your side while our empire burns? Kate felt anger flash through her, but she kept her mouth shut. This wasn't about her pride. King Theron turned to face his advisor. His voice was quiet, but it carried absolute authority. She saved my life. She saved Razor's life. She found what 13 other doctors missed. She is coming. That's final. The advisor opened her mouth to protest again, then saw the look in the king's eyes and wisely chose silence. Kate was already moving, packing her medical kit with everything she'd need. Syringes, scanners, medications, the specialized compound she'd synthesized for Razor. She worked quickly, efficiently, her hands steady despite the fact that she was apparently about to visit an alien homeworld in the middle of a civil war. Just another Tuesday, she thought with slightly hysterical humor. The journey to Valoria Prime took 3 days of hyperspace travel. Kate spent every waking hour monitoring Razor's condition and teaching the king's medical staff her treatment methods. They were skeptical at first. These primitive techniques, using basic chemistry and observation rather than advanced technology, seemed almost laughable to them. She showed them how to read Razor's body language to assess his pain levels. How to adjust dosages based on his behavior rather than just relying on scanner readings. How to work with his natural biology instead of trying to override it with technology. Some of them started to get it. Others remained doubtful. Kate didn't care. As long as they could keep Razor alive, that was all that mattered. Then, on the second day of travel, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Kate was in the medical bay when it happened. The lights flickered. The artificial gravity wavered for a moment, making her stomach lurch. Then the life support systems began shutting down, one by one. She ran to the bridge, arriving just as the Valerian engineers were gathering around their control panels. They looked confused, panicked. Their automated systems, the advanced technology they relied on for everything, were failing. And they didn't know what to do. What's happening? Kate demanded. Saboteur, one of the engineers said, his voice tight. Someone among the crew. They've corrupted the primary systems. Life support is dying. We're trying to route control to the backup systems, but there isn't time. Kate shouted. She could already feel the air getting thinner. They had minutes, not hours. Manual override. Where's your backup air system? The engineer stared at her. We don't have manual overrides. Everything is automated. If the computer systems fail, every ship has backup systems. Kate was already looking around, her mind racing. She spotted a storage panel and ripped it open. Inside was a roll of what the Valorians called emergency seal tape. Humans would have called it really advanced duct tape. Show me the maintenance shafts. The physical infrastructure. Now. What followed was 2 hours of controlled chaos. Kate crawled through maintenance shafts that weren't designed for human-sized bodies. She bypassed primary systems by manually connecting secondary ones. She rerouted power through maintenance conduits using methods that made the Valorian engineers' heads hurt. She created a patchwork life support system held together with seal tape, spare wire, and sheer determination. It shouldn't have worked. By every law of proper engineering, it should have failed immediately. But it worked. King Theron found her afterward, sitting on the floor of the engine room, covered in grease and coolant, her hands shaking from adrenaline crash. He stared at the tangle of cables and sealed panels that were now keeping his ship alive. "How did you know to do that?" he asked quietly. Kate wiped grease from her face with the back of her hand, probably just smearing it around. "Human ships break down all the time. We don't have your perfect technology. Our stuff fails. Constantly. So we learn to fix things with whatever we have on hand. You build things to work perfectly. We build things to fail gracefully." A young member of the crew, a human technician named Tyler who'd been hired for his expertise in old Earth systems, grinned at her from across the room. "Humanity," he said proudly. "Held together with duct tape and spite since day one." Kate actually laughed despite everything. "Yeah. Something like that." When Valoria Prime finally appeared in the viewport, beautiful and silver in the light of its sun, they received an emergency broadcast. Kate listened to the translation, her stomach sinking with every word. The Capitol Palace was under siege. Armed forces loyal to the conspirators had surrounded it. The coup had begun. They were flying straight into a war zone. The royal ship descended through Valoria Prime's atmosphere, and Kate's first view of the alien homeworld was fire. Plasma bolts streaked across the night sky like deadly fireworks. Buildings burned in the distance. The capital city, which should have been beautiful with its silver architecture and crystalline towers, looked like it was being torn apart. The ship landed on a platform near the palace with a hard jolt that made Kate grab onto a support rail. Through the viewport, she could see the royal guards fighting desperately against enemy forces. They were outnumbered badly. For every loyalist soldier, there seemed to be 3 conspirators pressing forward. King Theron stood at the ramp, his face carved from stone. But Kate saw his hands trembling slightly. This was his home. His people. And they were killing each other. Then every screen in the city lit up simultaneously. A Valorian Kate didn't recognize appeared, his silver skin decorated with military medals. His voice boomed across the capital, amplified by thousands of speakers. "King Theron has fled to primitive species for help," the usurper declared, his tone dripping with contempt. "Look at him. He brings humans to save him. Humans? A species that still uses chemical fuel and physical tools. He is weak. He has betrayed everything Valoria stands for. He has betrayed our strength." Kate felt her face flush with anger, but there was no time for hurt feelings. The enemy forces had spotted the royal ship. They were advancing, weapons raised. Then Razor moved. The Night Fang had been resting in the cargo bay during the landing. Now he stood at the top of the ramp, all 8 feet of him silhouetted against the burning sky. He was fully healed. Fully rested. And Kate could see from the way his fur bristled and his claws extended that he was absolutely furious. Razor let out a roar that made Kate's entire skeleton vibrate. The sound started deep in his chest and exploded outward, primal and terrifying. She felt it in her ribs, in her teeth, in her bones. This wasn't just noise. This was the sound of an apex predator on a world with twice Earth's gravity. This was the sound that prey species heard in their nightmares. The enemy forces actually stopped advancing. Some of them took steps backward. Then Razor launched himself into battle, and Kate understood why Night Fangs were legendary. 6 legs meant 6 different angles of attack. While his front legs swiped at one soldier, his middle legs were already positioning for the next strike, and his rear legs were propelling him forward at speeds that shouldn't have been possible for something his size. 3 eyes meant no blind spots. He saw everything, anticipated everything. His claws shredded through armor like it was paper. His jaws clamped down on weapons and crushed them into twisted metal. And on his back, holding onto Razor's fur with one hand and wielding a plasma blade with the other, King Theron fought like the warrior kings from Valorian legends. The bond between them was obvious now. They moved as one unit, anticipating each other's moves, covering each other's weaknesses. The loyalist forces rallied. Seeing their king return, seeing him fight alongside his bonded companion, they surged forward with renewed energy. Kate watched from the ship's ramp, her medical kit clutched in her hands. She couldn't fight. She had no training for combat, no weapons, no armor. But as she watched soldiers fall on both sides, bleeding and broken, something inside her wouldn't let her just stand there. She ran forward into the chaos. A wounded conspirator lay on the ground, clutching his side where plasma fire had burned through his armor. His silver skin was darkening around the wound, the Valerian equivalent of bruising. He looked up at Kate with fear and confusion as she dropped to her knees beside him. "What is she doing?" someone shouted above the noise of battle. "She's helping them?" "But they tried to kill the king." Kate ignored the voices. She pulled supplies from her medical kit with practiced efficiency. Antiseptic gel. Synthetic skin. Pressure bandages. Her hands moved on autopilot following years of training. She applied pressure to the wound to stop the bleeding, cleaned it, sealed it. "I'm a doctor," she said simply, looking up at the soldiers watching her with shock. "This is what we do. We help people who are hurt. All people." She moved to the next wounded soldier. This one was a loyalist, a young woman barely out of training by the look of her. Kate treated her with the same care, the same efficiency. Then she moved to the next, and the next. The battle was being broadcast across the entire planet. Every Valerian citizen with access to a screen watched as their king fought to reclaim his throne. They watched Razor tear through enemy lines with devastating efficiency. And they watched a human, a member of a species they had dismissed as primitive, running through an active war zone to save Valerian lives. She didn't ask which side anyone was on. She didn't care about politics or loyalty or who had supported the coup. She saw wounded people and she helped them. That was all that mattered. One of the conspirators, a grizzled veteran with scars covering half his face, watched Kate save his comrade's life. Then he lowered his weapon. Then another conspirator did the same. Then another. The coup collapsed within 3 hours. Without their soldiers willing to fight, the conspiracy leaders had nothing. King Theron's forces surrounded them and it was over. In the aftermath, as the fires were put out and the wounded were taken to proper hospitals, King Theron stood in his throne room. Razor sat beside the throne, his massive head resting on his paws, watching everything with those 3 intelligent eyes. Every screen on Valoria Prime showed the king's address. Kate stood off to the side, trying to be invisible, but Theron gestured for her to come forward. "For generations we called ourselves advanced," the king said, his voice carrying across the planet. "We called ourselves superior to the younger species. We had the best technology, the most powerful military, the greatest minds. Yet when I needed help, when Razor was dying, all of that advancement meant nothing. 13 worlds. 13 doctors. Hundreds of years of combined experience. And they all failed." He turned to Kate. It was a human who answered. A human who found what everyone else missed. A human who saved not just Razor but me and this ship and... He gestured to the screens showing images of Kate treating wounded soldiers. "My people. Both those loyal to me and those who fought against me. She saved them all without hesitation." King Theron's voice grew stronger. "Dr. Kate Morrison, I offer you the position of Chief Medical Advisor to the Valerian Empire. I offer your species a formal alliance, with all the benefits and protections that brings. I offer my friendship and my eternal gratitude." Kate felt every eye in the throne room on her. She stepped forward, looked at the king and smiled. "I appreciate the offer, Your Majesty. I really do. But I have a clinic on Gateway Station. Small animals who need me. Traders' pets. Diplomats' companions. That's my life." She walked over to Razor and scratched behind his ear, right in the spot that made his back leg twitch. "However, this big guy still needs checkups. Regular monitoring to make sure the treatment holds. So I'll visit. Often." 3 months later, Kate's small veterinary clinic on Gateway Station had a waiting list 3 months long. Species from across the galaxy sought her out specifically. They came because word had spread about the human who saved a king's Nightfang and stopped a civil war without firing a shot. Razor visited every week like clockwork, always bringing new patients. Sometimes they were royal pets from the Valerian Empire. Sometimes they were creatures from species Kate had never even heard of. It didn't matter. She treated them all. And as Kate sat in her clinic one quiet evening, a cup of coffee in her hands and a small alien creature purring in her lap, she thought about how strange life could be. The galaxy had refused to treat the ravenous wolf. All their advanced technology and superior knowledge had failed. It took a human with basic chemistry, duct tape, and compassion to see past the fangs and find a friend. Sometimes, Kate thought, the best solutions aren't the most advanced ones. Sometimes you just need someone brave enough to sit down on the floor and wait for trust to grow. She smiled and took another sip of her coffee. Just another day at the clinic. Just another life saved. And maybe, just maybe, she'd helped prove something important. That having the biggest heart mattered more than having the best technology. The end.